Hello everyone, welcome back to my kitchen. Okay, so last week we talked about one of Jesus's disciples. We talked about the disciple Peter baptizing Lydia. Well, this week we're going to focus on a whole other disciple, a disciple named Thomas. Now, Thomas has kind of an unfortunate nickname attached to him. He's known as Doubting Thomas. So today we're going to be talking about, and I'm going to be telling the story of how Thomas kind of got this nickname. But before we get started, I have a question for you. Do you have a nickname? I've got a few. I've got, I have some friends that call me Cammy. I have some family members that still call me Mealers. And then through Girl Scouts and softball, I used to be called Birdie because I was always singing. So now that we've talked about my nicknames, let's go ahead and talk about how Thomas got his. So we're going to rewind a little bit to just after the crucifixion. So after Jesus has been crucified and laid in the tomb to rest, all of the disciples gathered in one large house. In fact, it was the same house where they had had their Last Supper. And instead of it being full of food and friends and love, it was all locked up and shuttered because the disciples were so afraid and so sad after the crucifixion of Jesus that they really were just like, we need to shut the world out for a little bit. We need this time. So they locked up all the doors, locked up all the windows, and they spent some time in this house. Now, what a lot of people do when somebody passes away, a lot of times the family members and friends that are still alive like to come together and tell stories, memories, just things that are happy and remind them of their good friend or family member. So that's kind of what the disciples were doing. So they would gather kind of throughout the day and talk about the stories and lessons and memories that they had of Jesus Christ. Well, one of these days, most of the disciples were kind of gathered in one area, eating, sharing a meal, talking, telling stories, and then suddenly someone appeared among them. Can you guess who it is? It was Jesus. Jesus just like appeared out of nowhere. And he didn't come with like a flash of smoke and fireworks. He just was very calm and he just appeared and he said, "Peace be with you. As my Father sent me, I am sending you." Which kind of comes to where the disciples are now later on. That's what sparks Peter into going out and like spreading the word and the teachings of Jesus. So everybody is, of course, like shocked and surprised. And then once that wears off, they get really, really excited and happy. And they cannot believe that their friend has come back, that he is alive. He has risen from the dead. Now, I don't know about you, but my family, when we get excited, we tend to get loud. Our voices go up, there's laughing, there's hand waving. We get big when we get excited. So, unfortunately, not all the disciples were there. One disciple was missing. So the disciple that was missing comes running in. He's like, "What is going on? Why are you guys all so excited?" And they say, "Thomas, you will not." Oh my goodness. Jesus is alive. He's come back from the dead. He has risen. He is the Son of God. So Thomas is like, whoa. You mean to tell me that somebody that has died, that we have wrapped in linens and put in a tomb, has come back to life? I don't think I believe it. He says, in fact, he has like a specific line. He says, "I will not believe it unless I see the nail marks and I put my hand on his side. I will not believe." So everybody's like, no, Thomas, we really saw him. We saw him. He was alive. And Thomas is like, no. I need to see this. I need to see Jesus with my own eyes to believe this. So the week kind of goes on and everybody's like, he's back, he's risen. And Thomas is still kind of like, I really don't believe this. How do I know it's not somebody that just looks like Jesus? How do I know that it's really Jesus? So a whole week passes with Thomas kind of having his thoughts in his brain. And then on the seventh day, as they're all gathered, all the disciples this time, somebody appears at dinner again. Yeah, Jesus comes back literally just for Thomas. And he walks right up to Thomas and he says, stop doubting and believe. And Thomas is in like shock and awe, and he is so grateful. He just can't believe it, that all he can say is my Lord and my God. He's just like so overwhelmed and just truly thankful that his friend and teacher and his mentor and the person that he loves is come back to life. So he's kind of talking to Thomas and Jesus, and they're kind of connecting, and they're just so excited. And then Jesus says, because you have seen me, you have believed. And then he kind of follows up with this. Blessed are those who have not seen yet have belief. And I kind of think what Jesus is telling us there is that you are somebody that needed to see me to believe me. But truly blessed are those that don't need to see me to believe. They just know, they have faith that I'm there, like surrounding them with my love, protecting and holding on to them. Now, I just kind of have a few questions about that story. Question number 1, did Thomas get in trouble for not believing? No. In fact, Jesus came back just for him because he knew that's what Thomas needed to really kind of spark that fire and believe, to have that belief again. He knew that Thomas needed to see him. And the other thing I wanted to ask is that when Jesus comes back to life and he kind of greets the disciples, he asks them and like brings to the table, he says, peace be with you. He brings peace with him. So I was just wondering, do you guys know what peace is? And what do you think Jesus means when he says, peace be with you? What is he telling or offering to the disciples? And the last thing I have is a question. My last question that I have for you is, would you believe it if someone told you Jesus had come back to life? You know, I'd like to think that I'd have the faith and I'd be like, yes, I believe he is back. He's the Son of God. Of course he can do this. He's done all sorts of miracles. But I kind of think I might have had that little doubt too. I might have had that voice in the back of my head saying, but is it really him? Has he really come back to life? So I think we've all got a little bit of a doubting Thomas inside of us, but I think that's perfectly okay because Jesus knows that, one, we're people and nobody's perfect. Everybody has those fears and doubts, and Jesus is there to help kind of hold on to us even though we have those. He's not going to just stop loving us because we doubt or we have fear. And the other thing I wanted to ask is, well, you know, it's just... Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I looked down and I couldn't see it. Is now I have kind of some things to ask you to do when you go home. So, the disciples, they hung out together in the days that following like Jesus's death. And they told stories, they ate meals together, and they encouraged one another that even though they had lost this huge person, important person in their life, they could still kind of keep going. And I was wondering, do you have any people like that in your life? Those who encourage you to do better and keep going even when things are hard? I know I do. Okay, so now that we're at the end of our story, and we've kind of talked about it, I think Thomas needs a new nickname because I don't think he should be called Doubting Thomas because I have doubts all the time. I'm not called Doubting Camille. I think Thomas's new nickname should be Grateful Camille. Because if anybody really had the most to gain from finding out that Jesus had come back to life, I think it would be Thomas. Because he spent a whole week not really knowing the truth that he had come back. So I don't think anybody was more thankful or grateful that his friend and his mentor had come back to life than somebody who has doubts that have been proven wrong. So I think we need to kind of get on that and see if we can change his name to Grateful Thomas instead of Doubting Thomas. Now, the last thing we'll do today is we'll close out with a prayer, and then once you've watched this whole video, there are some coloring pages and then an activity family page that's got kind of some fun things to do at home. So we'll follow with our prayer, and it's just call and repeat, so I'll say the first bit, and then you follow with the repeat. And then we'll move on to our next story and activity, okay? Alrighty. So, dear Jesus, we know you love us when we believe and when we doubt. Thank you for showing up and bringing us peace. Amen. Okay, well, I hope you guys have fun with those family activities. And if you have any questions or want to know more about Thomas, feel free to hop on Facebook and you can post your questions there. Or if you just want to let me know what Sunday school like in your kitchen is looking like, you can put pictures up there too, okay? Alrighty, bye-bye everyone. I'll see you next week.